What is Stretch? Stretch is an ability to take your money and put it into an equity, security, an account that pays you at 11.5% monthly. And that's the most basic form of Bitcoin as we simplify it more and more over time. And of course, with that simplification from Bitcoin to digital asset treasury companies to Stretch, it gives more people access to Bitcoin. And to your point, as we raise money into Stretch, what do? We feed it back into the Bitcoin ecosystem.
We're here with Phong Lee from Strategy. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks for having me.
I know, thank you for coming and giving us a little bit space of your time. So Strategy is this company that has been leading a huge market now with like the Bitcoin treasury companies. It has built something that didn't exist before: convertible debt, perpetual preference, ATM issuance, all designed to accumulate more Bitcoin per share. For the person in this room who isn't a capital markets nerd, what's actually new about what you built?
Well, I'll start with, there's a lot that has changed in the last year. You were just asking me, what's my favorite Bitcoin era? And it's always the current present one, right? Because there's just so much innovation, so much change. You know, a year ago, we were at this event, Bitcoin Vegas 2025, and the big emerging conversation was Bitcoin treasury companies, DATs, whatever you want to call them. And we went from having 4 to 200 around the world in the course of literally a year. And that was fantastic, right? A DAT for every country, for every market, different purposes, even ones that hold other cryptocurrencies. Fantastic, great. And now here we fast forward to literally just a year later, and we have this emergence of a brand new asset class built on the back of Bitcoin, which is what you just mentioned, perpetual preferreds called Stretch. And what's awesome and exciting about Stretch is, you know, Bitcoin, right, digital capital, it's a tough concept. Here we sit in the echo chamber of Bitcoin Vegas. Everyone here gets it. You go outside in the real world, it's a difficult concept to grasp. You need to understand finance, corporate finance, macroeconomics, cryptography, computer engineering, computer science, all these things, right? And so we put on top of that digital equities, right, which are these digital asset treasury companies. So basically publicly traded companies that put back Bitcoin on their balance sheet. A little bit easier because people sort of get, I can buy a stock, a 4-letter ticker on the NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, and it has access to Bitcoin. It's a little easier. But if you go out into the real world, there are a lot of people who don't invest in equities. They don't invest in stocks, right? Or don't have access for whatever reason. So we said, how do you strip it down and make it even easier? And forget about the word perpetual prefers and all that kind of stuff for a sec. What is Stretch? Stretch is an ability to take your money and put it into an equity, security, an account that pays you at 11.5% monthly, right? And that's the most basic form of Bitcoin as we simplify it more and more over time. And of course, with that simplification from Bitcoin to digital asset treasury companies to Stretch, it gives more people access to Bitcoin. And to your point, as we raise money into Stretch, what do? We feed it back into the Bitcoin ecosystem, and it's allowed us to accumulate over 10,000 Bitcoin. And a lot of that accumulation has occurred because of Stretch.
Wow. No, and you say how much you guys have accumulated, and you guys are projected to reach 1 million Bitcoin by September.
Yeah, there's a lot of websites. There are prediction market guesses on when we're going to reach 1 million. I'll tell you, I don't know when we're going to reach 1 million. Right? Obviously, we're going to continue to try to grow Bitcoin per share by selling as much Stretch into the market as possible. And the 1 million it's just a number, right? It's not like we stop at 1 million.
Do you guys have like an estimate of when you guys will stop?
Stop buying Bitcoin?
Yeah.
No.
No?
No.
And you say like you accumulate with Stretch as well. How does that process work for you guys? So let's say, for example, me, I go in and invest in Stretch, I get it. And how does that work for you guys?
Yeah, so very simply, what do, right? We sell Stretch, which is a perpetual preferred product. You can buy it on the NASDAQ, go into Robinhood, you buy Stretch, all right? And every month you get paid at the end of the month. So for example, if you hold stretch on April 15th, on April 30th, you get paid 11.5% annualized. So about 1% a month. That's sort of what happens to the shareholder of stretch. What happens to us is that money you put into stretch, let's say you buy 10 shares and you buy $1,000, right? And as the demand for stretch outstrips, the demand to buy stretch outstrips people selling stretch, we raise that money and then we put that $1,000 into Bitcoin. So how do we actually pay the dividend? What happens with Bitcoin is our prediction is it goes up 30% a year, right? And we hold Bitcoin, right? And as it goes up 30% a year, we're able to pay the 11.5%. So we basically get the spread, the 18.5% in between. That's basically what happens. An individual isn't able to do that at scale. A small company can't do that at scale. But we can do that at scale because we have so much Bitcoin. And that's basically the process. We have unrealized gains on our Bitcoin. Through our equity, the equity value increases as those unrealized gains occur. And so we can take those gains of the equity to pay out to our investors. It's a beautiful thing.
It is. You guys have come up with different ways to stack Bitcoin in the most creative way possible. And obviously Stretch is one of them, and it's sort of like Bitcoin's iPhone moment. Apple recently announced their new CEO, John Ternus. What would you say to him if he were, here in my seat?
Well, I used to think this idea of Bitcoin for corporations was for everyone to put Bitcoin on their balance sheet. And we've seen a lot of friction in large established companies with established boards and established investment policies putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. So let's put that aside for a minute. What do you really want to do? An iPhone is a platform for consumers to do pretty much anything, right? And people are building anything apps into mobile devices. Well, what is still a pretty hard thing to do, right? And that everyone wants to do. Buying and selling stocks, equities, even, Robinhood has made it simpler, but the reality is we're still relying on very archaic rails. Broker dealers, exchanges, regulatory rules. And so, for example, very simply, you can't buy and sell strategy stock, stretch, Apple stock, but from 9:30 to 4 o'clock, 5 days a week, right? What should Apple do? Apple should create an ability, right? What has Apple done for payments, as an example, right? The idea that I can have on my wallet, my credit card, double click, Face ID, pay for a coffee. That's great. What if I could do the same thing with a stock, right? That I own. What if I could actually have a tokenized version on decentralized finance rails, a share of Stretch, and I say, hey, Izzy, you want to buy my share of Stretch for $100? That's the market prevailing price. And you're like, yes. I touch your phone, and all of a sudden you have the stock, right? That's the future world of tokenization of securities that actually is being worked through from a regulatory perspective with the SEC and others, right? And that's the world we should get to, because buying and selling of securities should be just as easy as buying and selling a coffee, right? So the advice to Apple is this is happening. It's going to happen. It'll happen likely somewhere in the next 1 to 2 years. And I think that's a beautiful world. Anytime you can reduce the friction of commerce, what do? You give access to everybody the ability to buy and sell stocks as tokenized assets, tokenized securities, and I think that would be a great thing.
Wow. No, I never even thought about it like that. Yeah, that would be insane. So you and Michael Saylor obviously work very close together. What's something about your working relationship that would surprise people?
I'll tell you a couple of things. One is everyone realizes the innovation, the intelligence, the intensity that comes with Michael Saylor. That comes through very front and center, and it's obvious when you spend time with him or you watch him on TV or on X or YouTube or whatever it is. He's also an extraordinarily kind and caring person, and I don't think people quite realize that. And of course, for who he is, there is a veneer, but once you get past that veneer, Mike's one of the nicest people, really caring. He expresses his caring in different ways. I'll tell you another story that I shared the other day is, he takes all that caring and he puts it into his life's work, Bitcoin strategy, and he gives it back in that way. Every now and then, Mike loves his analogies and his metaphors, and he'll sometimes give me, Phong, it's like raising kids, right? And I have 3 kids, and I'll let him give me his analogy. I'm like, Mike, what do you know about raising kids, dude? and of course, I think once he's like, I was a kid once. So no, he's just a fantastic, kind, caring person.
Wow, what do you know about raising kids, Michael? He's like, I was a kid once. Bitcoin and strategy have their fair share of haters. What are they missing?
Well, I'll start with whenever you're doing something that's different, that's popular, that people are talking about, haters will emerge, right? And haters get more attention than lovers, unfortunately, in today's sort of eyeball soundbite economy, if you will, right? And so there are people out there. Well, let's say for example, 70% of people like strategy, 30% hate strategy. Of that 30% of haters, like at least 80% of them, right? Like, so at least 24% of all the people who talk about strategy hate, just to hate, right? They're not educated. They don't really understand the company. They don't understand what Bitcoin is. They don't understand what a digital asset treasury company is. They don't understand what protection. They just hate. Why do they hate? Because that gets them attention, right? They're life, we have perpetual preferred. There are perpetual haters out there. And so I just dismiss those folks, right? Like they're the folks that when you see someone post something on X, the first thing they do is they're like, they swear and they say that's terrible. And it's within 1 second of something getting posted. They're not even reading the thing. Their immediate reaction is to hate. Then, I'll call it the 6% of people who talk about strategy who are haters who actually have a foundation for a reason, based off of education, research, to not like what we're doing. You have to listen to them. You have to learn and understand, okay, so what are they saying, right? Why are they saying it? Because within that, there are nuggets of truth. And you have to understand, it can change your position, it can change your product, it can change your philosophy if you understand those nuggets of truth. So there are some useful haters, there are some perpetual haters, and there are their lovers. And you need to listen to the useful haters and the lovers, and those in between, just ignore them.
It's one of those things, we're so different. Everybody's gonna need to get into Bitcoin in a different way, and you just have to meet them where they are. And one of the things that I've been hearing a lot, especially, is strategy has opened the market for people that are not Gen Zers, that can wait decades for Bitcoin to, be mined, all 21 million Bitcoin. So you guys have opened the market to this huge untapped group of people. So we have some fire questions. Okay. What is your hottest Bitcoin take and the one that might get you in trouble?
The hottest Bitcoin take and the one that might get me in trouble. I mean, my hottest take right now, obviously, is Stretch. And I truly believe we've created a product that is fit for everybody, right? Like literally everybody, from somebody who is a ultra high net worth individual in their 60s to, living paycheck to paycheck in their 20s to, me when I was 16 mowing lawns, right? And of course that gets us in trouble because people think, well, this is a security, and you're talking to people like this is fit for everybody. Yeah, you got to do some learning, but it is truly a product that we've created that should be fit for everybody.
So Bitcoin hits $1 million. What's the first thing you do?
Usually it'll hit $1 million when I wake up in the morning. The first thing I do, I wake up in the morning, I look at the first thing I do, I look at my wife and think how much I love her. And then the second thing I do is I look at my phone and I look at Bitcoin price. And if I wake up and Bitcoin price hits $1 million, I will probably go on X and see what I've missed overnight about people talking about Bitcoin price hitting $1 million. So it'll be a little X party happening and I'll join the X party.
I love that. Will Michael have another 100K party or? $1 million?
I can't, the 100K party was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
The $1 million party is gonna be
with Elon
epic.
in the moon.
It'll happen soon enough that we probably won't have civilizations on the moon yet.
Yeah. So what's the most wrong you've ever been about Bitcoin?
Oh, I've been wrong many times. I'll have to think about that. I mean, like, when Mike first presented the idea to me of putting Bitcoin on our balance sheet in 2020, I was pretty convinced it was a good idea, but I was not as convinced of how much of our dollars we should convert into Bitcoin as Mike was. When he comes up with an idea, he tends to have great conviction and go all in. And I wanted to take it easy. And, I listened to our shareholders and a lot of feedback, which sometimes when you know something's right, you got to go all in. So the first time I was wrong was thinking that we should have put just a small fraction of our balance sheet into Bitcoin, which is the common idea. You diversify with 5-10%. And we ended up putting essentially 100% of our excess cash into Bitcoin. And so I was wrong then. And I'm glad that Mike was right.
I love it. Hearing you talk, you have a way of being able to take sort of criticism and apply it and adapt it. Like, I want to know everything sort of like about your life. Like, you were talking about lowing bonds and everything. Now you're like the CEO of like the most important company out there. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's, I'm a pretty even-keeled guy on the outside. And I like to think that I don't internalize stress, but there are things that sort of get to you. And similar to, the Bitcoin haters, when things get to you, and call it maybe once a week or once a month, something really gnaws at me, it is good to internalize it, realize why, and use that energy like a judo move into making good decisions, right? Because if something gets to you and it's really gnawing at you, it's not because it's wrong or it's, people telling you things that are just wrong and you should move on. Normally, at sort of this stage in your life, I have a pretty good meter of what is right and wrong. And when something gets to you, it's because you're doing something potentially wrong. And so how do you take that and feed it into what is the right solution, right? When you're getting attacked or when you made a decision that people are sort of telling you is the wrong decision, the worst thing you can do is dismiss it. You have to take it as positive fuel towards a better outcome. And so that gets me to the point where, I'm pretty even keeled with life, but when there's a negative sort of issue, realize that you have to solve it. It's a problem to be solved versus something to continually stress and fight against. And so take the negative and turn it into an opportunity for a positive.
If you could go back to your younger self, looking back at everything that you have accomplished, what would you tell yourself?
Life is a gift, and success is a gift. And in my 20s, I often look back at, when I was 15 years old and I was preparing for this test or, about to play this football game or about to talk to this girl, I wish I could go back in time and do it over, right? And, at this point in my life, there isn't much, and this brings me a sense of great happiness. I don't think I'd do anything over. Like I could go back a year and maybe have made this different financial decision, or 10 years and said this thing differently to one of my children, but those are small things. Like I have a great sense of satisfaction that the path that my life has taken has led me to this moment, and I wouldn't change anything about it, right? And that gives you conviction as you move forward, right? I've led maybe half my life, that the decisions and things that happen going forward will happen for good reason. And I certainly realize that a lot of that is based off experience and making decisions based off of the wealth of knowledge you have and the people around you. And of course, a lot of that's just luck, right? I've been an extremely fortunate and lucky person across all aspects of life. And so with that, what would I tell to my, former teenager self? It'll all work out. Don't sweat it.
And you also project this piece. Do you have a life motto or a phrase that it's something that you look back to every day or that motivates you?
When my kids were growing up and they were in elementary school, they might remember this. I would pick them up from school, the two older ones, and I'd ask them, what did you do today where you worked hard? And what did you do today where you were kind? And those are the two things that I just wanted out of the kids was work hard, be kind. And I would say those are good life mottos. Always work hard, do your best, and be nice when you can.
Be nice when you can. Awesome. Thank you so much, Phong. This was amazing. I hope you have a great conference. Is there anything that you want to, any last words that you want the Bitcoiners or non-Bitcoiners or strategists to know?
What's always heartwarming, as sort of we talk on a more personal note, is when I'm at an event like this or when I meet people who have found Bitcoin, who have found strategy, and now who have found stretch. They're just really, really good people. And sometimes Bitcoin, for those who don't spend time within Bitcoin, have this sort of jaded view towards the asset class. They have a view that this is a political, asset, that it's for gamblers, risk takers. And I challenge you, if that is your biased view, informed by largely a lack of information, to go meet some Bitcoiners. Right? Just meet some folks, and you'll start to realize that, back to the life motto, they're hardworking folks who are exceptionally kind and generous with their time and with their energy. So my suggestion to everybody, and I realize most of you who will watch this are Bitcoiners, go find some people who don't know Bitcoin, and just encourage them to talk to people who are in the Bitcoin space, as opposed to coming towards it with any preconceived notion. Just talk to people with an open mind.
To people with an open eye. Thank you.